In a bustling office building in the heart of New York, Jack, a serious and disciplined security guard, firmly believed that cats were nothing but trouble, cold, aloof creatures that could never truly get along with people like him. Everyone assumed that someone like Jack would never care about a stray animal. But life has its own way of challenging assumptions, and it all started with a heavy downpour and a soaked little stray cat looking for shelter in the lobby of the building. Jack had been the security guard at the landmark building for over 8 years. He was the quiet type, punctual, rule-abiding, and rarely showed emotion. To the office workers in the building, Jack was the dependable night watchman, always stationed behind the large glass doors, watching everything silently like a living surveillance camera. He didn't have many friends, and he spoke only when necessary, sticking to polite, minimal conversation. The one thing everyone did know for sure about Jack was, he didn't like cats. In fact, it wasn't just dislike, it was practically a bias. Jack would often joke that cats were not loyal like dogs and that they always mess everything up. One time, an employee brought their cat to work for a few hours because their home was being cleaned, and Jack had scowled throughout his entire shift. He had grown up in a neighborhood where stray cats yelled all night, tore through trash, and climbed on rooftops causing trouble. That memory had left a permanent mark on him, a deep impression that never faded. So no one in the building ever imagined Jack and a cat could ever be friendly, let alone form any kind of bond. To them, the idea of a strict security guard and a scrappy stray cat getting along was like oil and water, plain impossible. Even Jack didn't expect that a single rainy afternoon would shake up everything he thought he knew. The storm rolled in without warning. Wind lashed against the windows, driving sheets of rain toward the front of the building. Jack was on duty as usual, eyes tracking the rush of people hurrying in to get out of the downpour. And then he saw it, a small, soaked figure, trembling as it crept along the edge of the wall. A stray cat. Normally, Jack would have shooed it away immediately. But this time, he hesitated. There was something in the cat's eyes that made him pause, not the usual mischievous glint, but something tired and frail. It didn't meow, didn't dig through trash, didn't cause a scene. It simply curled up beside the leg of a bench, as if asking for a little warmth. Jack glanced around, no one was paying attention. He opened the drawer of his desk and pulled out half a packet of salmon snacks, his go-to late-night snack, and quietly placed it on the floor a few steps from the cat. The little creature lifted its head, sniffed cautiously, then began to eat slowly, almost like it still didn't quite believe it was real. Jack watched for a moment, then turned back to his desk. He didn't say anything. Didn't think anything. He just knew that, for the first time in years, he didn't find a cat annoying. Since that day, the little stray cat began showing up more often. At first, only on rainy afternoons, but soon, it was there almost every early morning, just as Jack arrived for his shift. It didn't meow or try to cozy up to him. It would simply settle down a few feet away, occasionally glancing at him, as if checking to see whether the grumpy security guard was in a bad mood today. Jack never said anything, but he started leaving out a little food. Nothing fancy, just leftover sandwich crusts, cookie crumbs, sometimes his usual salmon snacks. And the cat never touched anything except what Jack had set out. There was a quiet kind of respect between them. No one crossed any lines. No pressure. No disturbance. It was a sort of silent companionship that Jack found oddly comforting. Weeks passed, and a new routine quietly took shape. Jack began bringing extra food, sometimes even picking up a small can of pâté from the supermarket. He gave the cat a name, Shadow, because of the way it glided silently through the hallway like a shadow. Shadow began to change too. From a scruffy, rain-soaked creature with matted fur, it became cleaner, quicker, and more alert. Its coat grew shinier, its eyes brighter, and its tail began to flick gently whenever Jack walked through the door. One night, while Jack was reading during a slow shift, he noticed Shadow jump up onto the bench across from him, curl into a ball, and fall asleep. Jack didn't say a word, just gave a small nod, as if acknowledging the quiet presence of a friend. Then Jack realized something inside him was changing too. The long, monotonous night shifts didn't feel quite as heavy anymore. He wasn't counting down the hours, he was, in fact, looking forward to seeing that little cat. One day, when Shadow didn't show up, Jack felt a strange emptiness. He glanced around the lobby, quietly called its name in his mind. When it returned the next morning, Jack exhaled softly and wasn't even sure why. A few employees began to notice. They teased, "Looks like Jack's got a new partner." Jack only smiled, something that was rare for him. A real smile. No one ever expected a reserved man like Jack and a stray cat to become such an unlikely pair. But in a city that never stops, where people rush past each other like strangers, Shadow's small, quiet, persistent presence gave Jack something warmer than words. No one forced this friendship. It didn't grow out of similarity, but out of understanding and acceptance. One man, one cat. Two worlds that once seemed impossible to connect, now quietly inseparable. The bond between Jack and Shadow had quietly become a familiar sight at the landmark building. Early morning employees often spotted the little cat curled up near the base of the security desk or perched on its usual bench, eyes half closed in the soft morning light. Though everyone was busy, they sometimes paused to smile when they saw Jack gently place a bowl of water or a small dish of food on the floor. Jack never said anything, but the look in his eyes, when he looked at Shadow, was very different from before. Then came a Monday morning. Jack arrived early, just like always, holding a small can of pâté he'd picked up from the corner store. He scanned the lobby, But Shadow wasn't there. Probably sleeping in somewhere, Jack thought. But by noon, halfway through his shift, there was still no sign of that familiar little shape. The bench sat empty. The corner by the wall felt oddly cold. One day passed. Then 2. Then 3. Still no Shadow. Jack grew restless. He checked every nook around the building, the emergency stairwells, the underground parking lot, all the quiet spots where Shadow liked to nap. Nothing. He began to lose focus. When someone asked, "Hey Jack, where's your cat?" he just shook his head, trying to hide the growing emptiness inside him. On the 5th day, a new employee recently transferred from another branch mentioned offhandedly, "I think I saw a cat like that at my friend's place." Said they found this adorable stray near here a few days ago and took it in. Jack's heart sank. The pieces fell into place. Shadow must have been mistaken for an abandoned stray. A kind-hearted stranger had probably seen it wandering alone and taken it home, not knowing that the cat already had a routine, and someone who waited for it every single day. From that day on, something changed in Jack. He spoke even less. His face grew more distant. The night shifts began to stretch long and heavy again. The bench across from him stayed empty. The food he brought went untouched. But he still brought it, still placed it gently on the floor, maybe out of habit, or maybe because of a fragile thread of hope he couldn't quite let go of. A week later, the building manager called Jack into his office. "Is everything all right? Some of the staff said you've seemed a little off lately." Jack was silent for a long moment. Then he finally said, softly, "The cat. Shadow, it doesn't come around anymore." The manager looked at him. He didn't laugh. He didn't ask for more. He simply nodded, just once, as if he understood something deeper than a lost pet. Then he did something no one expected. He sent out a building-wide email. Subject: "We're looking for Shadow, Jack's cat." The missing cat notice was sent out on a quiet Monday afternoon, just a few simple lines, but written with sincere warmth. Shadow, a small tabby cat often seen in the Landmark lobby with our security guard Jack, hasn't been around for nearly 2 weeks. If anyone has any information, or has recently adopted a similar-looking cat without knowing its background, please contact the front desk. Shadow isn't just a cat, he's a special friend to someone very special to us. In a building where people usually hurried past one another and rarely paid attention to the little things, this message made many pause. Someone remembered seeing Jack gently stroke Shadow's head while on duty. Someone else recalled a chilly morning when Shadow burrowed into Jack's jacket for warmth. These quiet, everyday moments now felt unexpectedly moving. 2 days later, A young admin staff member nervously approached the security desk, holding a small carrier in her arms. "Jack, I think this might be Shadow." She opened the carrier, and from inside, a pair of familiar eyes looked up. Shadow. One look was all it took. The cat leapt from the carrier, let out a soft meow, and jumped straight onto the familiar bench. Jack couldn't speak. He sat down slowly, reaching out to gently touch the cat's head. The tail gave a little flick. His heart eased in the same quiet way. The woman explained, "I found him on the street, thought he was a stray. He's been sweet, but these past few days, he just sat by the window, wouldn't eat, just stared outside. Then I saw the email and I knew." Jack didn't say much, just a quiet thank you. But from the look in his eyes, everyone understood. The thanks wasn't just for having Shadow back. It was for something more, a small community that had helped him hold on to something precious he never thought he needed, a friendship. From that day on, Shadow became an official part of the Landmark family. A cozy little bed was placed beside Jack's desk, with food and water refreshed daily. Employees coming in early or staying late would stop to greet the shift leader cat, sometimes bringing snacks for both the feline and his quiet partner. Jack was no longer the distant, silent guard everyone tiptoed past. He became more open, more willing to chat and share, especially with those who, like him, once believed they couldn't connect with anyone. And everyone came to understand. Sometimes, friendship comes from the most unexpected places. It doesn't require words. It doesn't require being alike. It just needs someone to stop, open their heart, and be patient enough to wait. Shadow had come home. And Jack, the man who once claimed he didn't like cats, could no longer imagine his life without him. Since Shadow's return, life at the Landmark building has felt a little gentler. People started lingering a bit longer at the security desk, not just to say hi to Jack, but to pet Shadow, drop off a small treat, or simply share a quiet smile. In an office world packed with deadlines, reports, and endless meetings, the sight of a sleepy cat curled up at the feet of a once stoic guard became a kind of peaceful pause, a tiny moment of calm in the daily rush. Jack wasn't just the serious security guy anymore. He smiled more, spoke more openly, and perhaps most unexpectedly, it was his friendship with a cat that helped him reconnect with people. New employees no longer hesitated to ask him for directions or help. Long-timers would occasionally stop to share little stories from their day. Jack didn't change into someone else, he simply returned to a part of himself he had long forgotten, the part that knew how to care, to bond, and to miss. Once, someone asked him, "Why do you care about Shadow so much?" Jack answered, "He doesn't try to make me laugh. Doesn't need me to say much. He's just there. And somehow, that's enough to make me feel like I'm not invisible." For many people in their mid-20s to 40s, those navigating the mess of work stress, family responsibilities, and quiet emotional voids, Jack and Shadow's story isn't just about a quirky bond between a man and a cat. It's a reminder, true connection doesn't have to be loud, or obvious, or filled with similarities. Sometimes, you find someone, or some cat, who quietly shifts your view of the world just by showing up, day after day, without asking anything in return. Maybe you've believed you're not the right fit for someone. Maybe you've thought you're too different to become friends. Just like Jack once believed he could never like cats, that belief might not be truth, it might only be a story you've told yourself. Because when you pause, open your heart, and choose to see someone from a different angle, you just might find common ground in the most unlikely places. And sometimes, friendship doesn't come with fireworks or noisy celebrations. Sometimes, it's a glance, a familiar spot, or the gentle flick of a tail by your side. It's the quiet but steady presence of someone who keeps showing up just because. The story of Jack and Shadow isn't just about an unusual friendship. It's a quiet invitation. Make room in your life for unexpected connections. Let friendship find you in places you never thought to look. Because sometimes, what you thought was impossible turns out to be exactly what you needed all along.